Perimenopause started for me around 42. That's about the average age it can start. Sometimes it starts a little earlier, sometimes it starts a little later. And I took all of the experiences that I had, but also there is this science behind it because I wasn't getting the information or the correct diagnosis from my own doctors. My OBGYN at the time was saying I was too young for menopause. She wasn't even throwing out the word perimenopause at the time. And I had to do a lot of my own research. I think I even wrote a funny blog about the things I was searching for at 2 a.m. and trying to figure out what was going on. And whenever I decided to write the book, well, I thought it was important to share my experience so that other women could relate to it, but also I wanted them to know that, hey, I'm not just ballparking here. Here is what is exactly going on, and here are the medical studies behind it. So things I pulled from the Mayo Clinic or the Cleveland Clinic or PubMed or even menopause.org to talk about all of those things that are going on with us biologically that we're just not necessarily aware of, that affects almost everything. It does affect our moods. It does affect our sex drive. It affects what's going on with our hair and our skin and our waistline. So I wanted to make sure that as I was telling my own story, I could back it up with also, by the way, here's what is actually happening medically and biologically, and put all of those facts in there as well, so that women could then click on them if they're in the ebook, or even just pull them up. Just, I'm going to search this and see it, look at this study to see if this is applying to me. So that's how I wanted to make sure to pull it all together by doing the science and the soul aspect of it.
I know this may sound like a silly question to ask, what is perimenopause? Because I know I've got a lot of men listening and they'll go, I've heard of menopause. And I'm sure that there are a lot of women out there, a handful, that haven't heard or don't know what perimenopause is.
Yeah, so that is one big misconception about menopause. Menopause is one day. Menopause is defined as that 12-month anniversary of a woman when she stops having her period. So 12 months, we've hit menopause, and then we go into post. All of that time when our hormones start to fluctuate and change is what's called perimenopause. And it can last, the average can be average has been changing recently, but the average is typically around 8 to 10 years. So we're entering into this phase and things are shifting, and this is hitting midlife, typically in the 40s, when kids are getting a little bit older, we're getting into our careers, life is just getting a little bit bigger, and we start getting misdiagnosis, stress, or we're just exhausted, we're overwhelmed, what have you, when really it's our hormones that are fluctuating. So that is the definition of perimenopause. It's all of those years that lead up to that one day of menopause. And then when we flip, it's considered postmenopause. And so I like to joke about it. It's that day your doctor may or may not celebrate with you. It's at one point in time when, So I thought recently I was hitting it. I was so excited. I was, oh my gosh, not to get too raw, but we can get a little raw. Yeah. I hadn't had my period for 11 months. And I was, oh my God, this is great. I thought I was hitting it. Nope, it hit about in January, mid-January of this year. I was like, oh my God, I got to reset the clock. So it happens. That's part of it.
Well, I'm going to say what's crazy and wild is that I'm going to use the word gestation period of, it could be from a short period relatively to years. Mm-hmm. And professional women who are working, that's got to be a difficult situation because I would imagine that you start doubting yourself in certain things, the hormonal changes, like I said, your waistline may change, your mood may change, and things like that. How do women and how can women deal with this in that professional work environment? How do they stop doubting themselves?
Yeah, so one of the things is really, and we say this all the time, is you gotta really listen to what is happening and listening and feeling into what is happening in your body. Because sometimes we do, like you mentioned, we start doubting ourselves because one of the things that is a common symptom or side effect, I should say, is brain fog, right? We call it menofog. So we start doubting ourselves because like, wait a minute, what did I just say? And we start, am I getting early onset dementia or something? No, it's hormones. So one thing that women need to do first is start to go, hey, I think it's not me, it's me as in my biology is potentially changing. And so I'm so happy that out in the world now, we're hearing more people really talk about it. We're hearing, Drew Barrymore, we're hearing Halle Berry. There's a couple of great documentaries that are coming out right now on perimenopause. And so it's getting some news. But the one thing is that a lot of women still are going, okay, well, what does that mean for me? Well, it means that if you're in your 40s, definitely if you're in your 40s and you start doubting yourself, don't take it as a person, like, don't take it personally. You're probably not the issue. It's more like your hormones are causing these little issues, and it's time to start listening and maybe start going and asking for some deeper types of hormone panel tests, blood tests, things like that.
Well, because of all these changes that a woman is going through with her body, and it can affect her mentally as well. I'm not saying mental going nuts and crazy, but
Well, sometimes it does. Do
maybe.
not touch that pillow. Do not touch that pillow. Yeah, yes, things like that can happen. It does.
So what do the men or the woman's partner, what do they have to be aware of? I'm sure if the partner is a woman, she's going to know, but a man is going to go, what the heck is going on with her? Or do you have a problem or something like that? So how does the woman let the man know, hey, give me a break?
Yeah, so gosh, this is such a multi-layered answer.
Yeah.
So number one, the woman really has to be in tune with her body and start to be aware of what's going on and start to seek answers. And then not take it as a personal slight, right? Because what is happening a lot of times, and this happened to me, where all of a sudden it was like a switch happened and I used to love sex. And then all of a sudden it was like, I would rather go get a tooth filled than the thought of doing that. It was a change. And then for a while, I was just, what is going on? Yeah, he's annoying me, but it's not that. And then I just remembered, I was like, this isn't me, right? I listened and I really went internal, like, that has never been me in my life. Something is up. And so communicating that with the partner it's very important, right? Because a man doesn't want, whomever, a man, a woman doesn't want to feel like they're not desired anymore. And it's very important for a woman to go, look, there's some things going on. I'm still trying to figure it out. It's not you, but I think I'm going to need you to give me some grace. Now, especially if there are kids involved, kids meaning whatever it is, sometimes a family with kids, because then a woman is exhausted. It's like, hey, can you cut me a little slack? Maybe can you take care of them for a little bit? I just need a nap because I'm all over the place. But if a man can come in, number one, and say and understand, hey, it's not them, but also try to not say the term that so many women don't want to hear, like, what's wrong with you? Because that I have heard it said, what's wrong with me? What's wrong with you? But so we need to try to not be attacking in how we present ourselves. Sometimes we need to say, I feel like you're having some struggles and I really want to be there for you. How can I best help you at this time? And if I was whenever anybody would ever said that to me, I was already emotional and I would tear up and be like, I don't know, but I'm so happy that you asked. I mean, that means so much for somebody just to recognize that we're struggling a little bit and try to be there. So
One of the biggest
that's
things
how.
too, and you've mentioned it several times, is the woman really needs to know her body, not just know my body, but really needs to understand and know the changes and to be able to assess and evaluate and say, oh, that's because I'm emotional because I'm cranky today because I had a bad day at work, versus there is a physical change, something going on in my body, hormonal. So
Yes.
Uh, that in itself seems really difficult.
Yes, it is. And one of the things that does happen when our hormones are changing is it really does, it lowers our tolerance for BS. It
Mm,
lowers
mm.
our tolerance for the shit that's going on around us. And it almost seems like we're throwing in we're like, okay, I don't have the tolerance for it anymore. Whenever we get to that point, that is a clear sign that something is going on because our hormones do regulate our emotions as well. And if we're unable to go, whatever, and now it's no, absolutely not. I have zero tolerance for that. That's a sign that, okay. And sometimes that is a good sign. I think that's a great outcome of our hormones changing is that we really start going, no, I am now putting up my boundaries. I'm not going to tolerate that. And now it's time for me to focus on getting myself a little relief and start to feel better. And all of this other stuff is going to have to wait. But that is one thing that will happen. It happened for me. It's happened for a lot of my female friends. I read a lot, I follow a lot of what's going on, and that's another clear sign is our tolerance for just BS goes away. Hoping I
You,
answered that your question okay, but
you did. In fact,
yeah.
you gave me this thought, and it might be somewhat of a joke, but in kind of a seriousness. Everybody goes into the kitchen, right? The man, the women, the kids, and everything. Why not have a BS meter? The woman will walk in there, put that line, today's BS meter is down here. I could take all the BS. Or up here, so I could take a bunch of BS. Down here, don't even start with me.
Yes, it could be a bring it or
Mhm.
a no. And that is a fun way to potentially communicate with a partner of how you're doing on that day because it does change daily, sometimes every other hour. We don't know what's going to affect us, and all of a sudden we're off. But yes, absolutely. Something like that would be a great way to say, okay, the meter is at full tilt.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, gonna give
The
you your
reason,
space. I know it's not about me. Gonna give you your
yeah.
space. Yeah.
The reason I say that is I think in this situation too, women may have a difficult time of expressing themselves in a kind manner, but men tend maybe not to listen. But if we see something, the red flag or that BS meter, we're like, you don't even have to communicate it because it's marked there like, oh, okay, no BSing today. And I think that could be like a two-way street. So it'd be very helpful.
It's like never call a pregnant woman crazy and try not to call a woman crazy if she's going through perimenopause because we seem that way and we know we seem that way.
Yeah.
We're just having a little bit of a challenge reeling it in. And then
Yeah.
sometimes we're not even going to try to reel it in because we really, I hate to say the word can't, but it is so challenging to get a hold of something whenever it's internal. And if we don't have that relief yet, I finally got relief after seeking out bioidentical hormone replacement therapy. But that's also with some mindfulness practices. I mean,
Mm.
breathing, just really breathing and trying to calm myself down whenever life gets nuts, like it is right now for all of us in the world. It's that challenge of just, okay, I got to get my center back. So, I have hormones running through me right now, but lately I've been having to do some really deep breathing as well to try to calm that chaos from everything that's going on and not let it get overwhelming.
I'm glad you said that because I want to find out from you, are there any habits or anything that you do other than like I said the breathing exercises and things like that that people can um, maybe use or try to see if it could help them ease their tension or the tension.
Yeah, so breathing is so important. The I do the box breathing. The breathe in for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 4, sit for 4, and run that through 3 or 4 times, and that helps. That helps us lower our heart rate. It gets us in a more calm state, And that can be done anytime, right? You can sit at your desk, you can go in the ladies' room, you can shut the door in your closet and keep everybody out and do it. And that will help. I have yet to have a time where it didn't bring me immediate relief. Not saying it's going to work for everyone, but it's such a calming, it has such a calming effect. Other things that I encourage women to do, and this is more intentional, and it does take time, right? Is we have to change how we approach even our fitness, our physical fitness. It is so important to incorporate some kind of strength training at this time of life, as opposed to running or doing anything that's a higher cardio type of workout. Strength training increases our bone density, but things like higher intensity training can actually have a negative effect by increases our cortisol spikes, which causes a stress response for us. So I'm not saying it isn't good to do, but it's more important to have either mindfulness as one practice along, and then incorporate more strength training into our physical fitness types of practices to help us during this time. It benefits us so much more than just, I'm going to go run around the block. If we're feeling stressed, take a quick walk, but let's keep our cortisol from spiking too high, because that's going to cause a little bit more chaos internally than what we think it's going to.
So I would imagine then that it's not necessary for women to have to purchase a gym membership and go to the gym and pick up these big dumbbells and barbells. It could be squats. It could be 3-pound, 5-pound weights, right? And just
Yes. Even body weight, exercises, push-ups, you can do tricep push, things like that. It's anything that is any kind of resistance. So strength training, weights, but it's more about resistance. So thank you for helping with that clarification. Strength training is great, and any kind of weight bearing is better. But when you're pushing, doing push-ups, you're pushing your body weight, right? That is weight bearing. So
yeah,
yes, resistance training is very important.
that's really good to know.
Mm-hmm.
Again, kind of going back with all the hormonal changes and everything that's happening. Now, a lot of women, we'll take it in, like you said, the early 40s, starting in that time frame. They may be at that peak of their career. So how do they approach employers, coworkers, and things like that? If, you don't want them to go, oh man, Karen is off the handle today. What is
She's
up with her?
hormonal. Yeah. Yeah.
How do
You
you,
know,
can women deal with that?
it's tough, right? Because it requires a level of vulnerability to go to a coworker or to an HR rep or to your manager or to even your own staff if you're leading a team, and say, hey, I appreciate what's going on with myself right now, and I want to tell you a little bit about it. I am a little hormonal, right? I'm going through this change. In fact, there were multiple times where I snapped at people, just didn't think, snapped at them, and then realized, you know what? I need to go and say, I apologize. I'm not going to blame my hormones on that. However, I know it's a factor, because that's not like me. I am not that kind of person that just snaps and flies off the handle. So it is important for us to admit that this is going on, and in order to get that kind of support, we do need to have those honest communications that aren't that comfortable to have. Because what I have found by doing that, people understand, and once they understand, they do want to help and support you. There are more organizations that are rolling out even menopause care policies, and not just through health insurance. Now we're slowly starting to see some menopause care getting covered through some health insurance. Some Rhode Island was the first state to roll it out. Illinois just rolled it out. Health insurers in the state who are providing health insurance in that state, they need to provide for certain types of menopause care. But we're also seeing some larger organizations. I know Deloitte in the UK does it. I am escaping on now. I have to come back to which large employer here in the US has menopause related policies where, hey, if you're having a bad day, you can take a personal day to deal with it because they understand what's happening. Because so much productivity is being lost by women who aren't getting the proper type of care and are not able to function as they can, as they used to be able to function. So if you're in that role, that type of role, and at work, it's very important to, once you recognize what's going on, to have those candid conversations, even if it feels tough. Because actually, that's a very strong leadership skill, is to be yourself and be vulnerable, because it encourages trust as well amongst your peers and amongst your team.
Yeah, I would imagine in a situation like that, it's definitely personal. And a lot of times we hear in the workforce, don't bring your personal matters into the workplace, that kind of thing. But I think in a situation like this, you've got to override that. And you have to find the strength to be able to, like you said, let people know, hey, I'm going through this situation right now. You can make a joke out of it. Hopefully it won't be too long for your sake, but
Hopefully not.
then it gives people that ability to understand what is going on and not to have that conflict. And like I said, if you don't want to tell everyone, if you want to just mention it to HR, at least that's that starting point. And correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I would think that if it's possible, especially if you're in that management role, not to send it out in an email form. Just have a quick 5-minute meeting or something like that to say, hey, this is what's going on. Because if I get it on an email, I'm like, whatever. Or I may not even catch it or
You
read
might not
it.
even read it, right? No, it's important to have that face-to-face, one-on-one dialogue if possible. It can be via Zoom. A lot of people are working remote, right? And they're meeting with their managers, remotely. But I do think it needs to be more of a conversation so that it can be related and they can see it, right? Having a conversation like this, we can see and feel the other person and even empathize with what they're going through way more than you ever could in an email. Now, I don't know if any organization is going to say, okay, well, email your team and let them know. I have no idea. I don't think that is probably what's going to happen. But no, the conversation definitely needs to be more one-on-one, face-to-face. That way a dialogue can be had, especially with HR, because a good HR rep is going to say, okay, well, thank you for sharing. How best can we support you? And if you have a rep that's saying that to you, that's wonderful. That's golden, because then you know that you're heard and you're seen. And I know some small organizations, some small businesses don't even technically have an HR, dedicated rep. Still go to your manager, pull them aside and say, this is what's going on. I mean, if a woman is pregnant, right, that's a personal thing as well. But it's out there, and we do make, right? Of course we make adaptations, or I'm trying to think of the right word. Go ahead. Sorry. Yeah. But I think you understand where I'm going with that.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought up the thing about pregnancy, because that's something outwardly it's noticeable, and this goes for the perimenopause and it goes for depression too. And I know I'm just throwing this in there. Those are things that people don't see. They can't see. You feel it internally. I can't see it,
Yeah.
other than maybe that scowl on your face kind of thing. But um, so I think this is an all-around benefit. The other thing too is if you share this, maybe there's another woman in there that might say, oh my gosh, I was wondering why I'm feeling like this. I want to have a conversation personally with Karen to find out.
Yeah.
So
Or,
And that kind of,
you're seeing her over there, all of a sudden she's having a hot flash and you're having a hot flash and you're both looking at each other like, I know what is going on. And yeah, we need to talk. But you're right. It helps other people feel seen and less alone if we are talking more openly about what's going on, because this is something that affects every single woman. Every woman.
yeah.
If we're fortunate enough to live as long as we are,
Yeah.
it's going to happen. It's inevitable. We're not all going to experience it the same way, but we're going to experience it.
And I would imagine everything that we're talking about being clear, letting people know, and things like that, is probably in your book, isn't it? Perimenopause Clarity, letting people understand what it is that I'm going through. And so you understand. And then now you may understand what your body is going through when you reach that point, if you're a young woman.
Yes, absolutely. It's all there. I got very raw and open with my experiences with it. Everything from, like I mentioned earlier, the sex issues, but hey, it happens to all of us. Things that happen that we are not happy about happening in certain places. It happens and it's going to be there. And even things like, I had a miscarriage early in perimenopause as well. And right, our hormones are all over the place. Our eggs are starting to decline, but it is still possible to get pregnant during that time. And unfortunately, I lost the child at 12 weeks. That was just something that happened. But yes, being open and honest helps other women feel seen and heard and less alone. Because even though, like I mentioned, every single woman's going to go through it, we're still shocked about some of the things that can happen, and we still can feel like there's something wrong with us when there's nothing wrong with us.
Yeah, that's one thing I think that men, I'm going to throw in men because we're around our moms, our sisters, our wives, our girlfriends, and things like this. We're all going to experience it in one form or another. But I kind of want to go back a little bit and ask you, what changed initially and internally when you first started going through this? Were there any habits that changed, or any values, or your confidence, or anything like that?
Yeah, I think part of it also, because this happens in midlife, right? The values around the things that I found important before shifted.
Okay.
And some of those had to do with the roles that I always felt like I had to have or had to be. Right. So a lot of women, I grew up in the 80s and 90s, right? So a lot of women were, okay, you need to go and get a college degree. Okay, great. Well, now you got to have a good career. Okay, check. Okay, well, now don't forget, you still have to get married. Okay, well, yeah, don't forget, you probably still need to have kids. But I'm like, well, I don't know if that's possible, but right. So all of these things, there were the value of got to have this, got to have that, got to have the house, got to have the car, got to have the career, got to have this. You get into midlife, and then whenever you're going through this change, because this is part of the big change, right? It's the big midlife change that women go through is, wait a minute, am I truly happy? Right? I've achieved certain things. I've had the business that's sold. I've had a corporate career. I've had a marriage. I've had, then I had a divorce, and then other things that I've achieved. And it's not that I'm not fully happy. It's just I started to realize I wasn't fully aligned with some of the dreams that I had internally. And so some of my priorities changed about, wait a minute, all of these things that I was told that I had to have, I've gotten them, but I'm not fully happy. But it was part of it because I was misaligned with what I was going after. I went after all the things that people said that I needed to go after. And in midlife, that value set can shift. It shifts for men, it shifts for women. And if we feel like we have the ability to pivot, it's so important to pivot. And even if we feel like we don't necessarily have the ability, sometimes pivot and just believing that this is what you need to do. I'm a big universal energy kind of person as well. things will align to help you get to achieve what you want to achieve if you stay aligned and focused on what you know is right for you. So yeah, so the values shifted around what do they say versus what do I say is what I need to do.
And that word alignment is such a big word, because we tend to get misaligned, or we you kind of, I think, put it where we're aligned with what somebody says we have to do because that's the norm. Well, what is the norm?
Right.
So find that alignment and align yourself or realign yourself. Uh, Before we close out, Karen, I was wondering if you could let the listeners or viewers know if there's one small little experiment or something like that that they can do this week to, I'll put it, regain their agency in midlife.
Find some quiet time away from everyone. Sit in the quiet and just listen. Now, is this a little bit of meditation? Maybe, but you don't necessarily have to sit and and all and what have you. I mean, just sit in the quiet, even journal it out. Just start free writing. See what comes out. Just keep going and see what comes out, and you will probably figure out where you are misaligned. So I tell people in midlife, get quiet and listen to yourself. What's that little internal voice that may have been silently screaming for a while, wanting you to hear?
Wow, that's really, really good advice. This has been fantastic. Karen Herrera, I'm going to get this right. www.KarenA.Herrera, and that's HERRERA.com. And your book is called Perimenopause Clarity.
Thank you so much, Chuck. I have had the best time talking with you. I love these kinds of conversations.
This has been fantastic.
My pleasure. Thank you so much, Chuck.
You're welcome.